Hi everyone, my name is Mike and this is Real Estate in 10 Minutes. A lot has happened since the last time I spoke with you. Inflation is still rising. Wells Fargo cuts personal lines of credit. JP Morgan is hoarding cash because they say inflation is here to stay. The Fed Chair Jerome Powell testified in front of Congress, and today I'll answer some of the questions we all have on our mind. Let's get right into the show. That good? I don't know. Well, anyways. The other day, Fed Chair Jerome Powell testified in front of Congress. Digital currency, real estate, and inflation were all part of the handful of topics covered. Congress and the Feds are worried that the federal government holds a lion's share of the CMBSs, or the commercial mortgage-backed securities. And if you don't know what that is, you can't afford it. Just kidding. Go back to my earlier videos and I explain the link between the two. Congress and the Federal Reserve did take note that the supply and demand in real estate is a little skewed. And in my opinion, they should be incentivizing builders to build. Do what they do best. But that is a subject for another discussion. And in other news, and like I said before, and I'm kind of bummed that I'm kind of right. Like I said before, inflation will rise faster and higher than expected. The Fed's job is to make sure that the game is still being played and not to be the backstop for the players. Meaning the Federal Reserve is not meant to handhold the average American. Their job is to make sure that the song continues to play, unfortunately. Looking at history, the Feds are notorious for downplaying the storm. They stated in the 1970s that there will be no inflation when they took the gold standard away from the dollar. Just before the bubble burst in 2008, they preached the benefits of the subprime loans. Hell, just recently we all thought it was going to take 2 weeks to slow the curve. But I get it, no one wants to be known as the one that takes the punch bowl away from the party. But for us average Americans, just understand that our savings will take a hit, the equity of our homes as well. But so will our mortgages and our debt. I'm not trying to be an alarmist or tell you to brace for impact, but all I'm saying is there's ways to make good decisions in the near future. That's all. You see, normally it's a constant battle between deflation and inflation. Because of tech and innovation making things easier and streamlined, deflation is a constant possibility. That's the easiest way I can describe everything. So in order to combat that, the federal government reserves work with the banks to lend money into existence. Now, last year, 35% of all dollars that have ever been created has been created in 1 year. So no wonder we're battling with longer than transitory inflation. But unfortunately, it's more than that. We are also experiencing shrinkflation, because companies are having a hard time finding people to fill those job roles. Experiencing 2-hour wait time. Restaurants are demanding minimums. Your favorite pretzel bag has fewer pretzels in it. The daily goods and services we've experienced on a day-to-day basis has not changed in price in a sense, but companies are providing less of it. And after hearing what Jerome Powell had to say, we have to understand that there is no real estate bubble in the near term. But if you overpay, you've essentially put yourself in a bubble. I understand that's easier said than done, and this is kind of a complicated market, and it all depends on what does it mean to overpay, and all scenarios are different. But as long as you check off these 4 boxes, you should be in the driver's seat during possible turbulent times. And these 4 are: 1. Fit for you and your family, great school district, close to work, etc. Number 2. Timeline is important. How long will you be living in this home? This is a 10 to 15 year strategy at the very least. If needed, can you weather a recession? Number 3, what is this market appreciation? What is the forecasted appreciation? 6% appreciation is a good appreciation on a home, but condos kind of lag behind. It's fine if you overpay in a hot market, even though that is not ideal, but if it's a long-term hot market, then the appreciation of your home will catch up to what you originally paid for in the short term. Now, if it appreciates in 8 years by 6%, then you've overpaid. Then it's a tough pill to swallow. But if it appreciates in 1 year or in 6 months, then you're in a great position. Number 4, cost per square footage. How much are you paying? What are the comps around the area? Are you overpaying based on the cost per square foot? And if you are, then go back to step 3. Now, there are a few warning signs I want to point to. Wells Fargo and JP Morgan are starting to hoard cash, and if that's the case, it's starting to smell like 2008. And if we remember, the banking system locked up and there are no new loans were issued. Now let's go back to my earlier point. We are constantly and continually battling between expansion and contraction. And us being a debt-based system, if we're not lending out money, well, it raises a few eyebrows at the very least. On top of that, Realtor Magazine stated that the pending sales are down. Inventory is up, and in a normal housing market, this would equate to housing prices usually falling. But because of interest rates and inventory being this low, it is difficult for the correction to happen or to have a correction. But I think this may just be a lull in the market, especially reviewing the increase in mortgages last month of applications jumping to 16%. And usually the mortgage industry kind of tells you what's going on for the next month. Usually. There's a lot of difference there and nuances within there. But anyways, now for the real estate market to start to slow down, the Feds will need to raise interest rates. But if they do that, then the market will shrink during a turbulent time, hindering GDP growth and people's pocketbooks. More importantly, the average American's pocketbooks. But if they continue this pace, inflation will continue to run red hot. The Feds have essentially stuck themselves in a figurative rock and a hard place. And I think the banks know that. And when the banks start to hold on to cash, we need to take notice. I wouldn't be surprised if the Federal Reserve is forced to raise interest rates, or at the very least, it's going to be harder for the average American to apply for mortgages or a loan with banks tightening things up. Especially seeing that the banks are actually handing back the money the Feds originally gave them because of the sheer risk involved. You'll notice that in this graph that shows the amount of cash being sent back to the Federal Reserve. You see these little hot blips there? Well, high blips, hot blips. These little points. Make sense? Anyways, so those are actually the sheer amount of cash flow sent back to the Feds. It's like a game of hot potatoes. That's essentially the Reader's Digest version of what I could explain within this graph, or at least what the graph entails. Fair? Okay, let's move on. I wouldn't exactly describe this economy as stable, but we all need a place to lay our heads. And it is still cheaper to buy than rent right now. And I'll assure you this video is not a propaganda for you to hurry up and buy and sell. It's not a great time to buy and sell. It's a great time to buy and sell. That's not what I'm trying to do. But what I am saying is we all have to make good long-term financial decisions. The economy is showing signs of complications. Make sure you have ways to protect you and your money. Diversify. Make sure you have some portfolio insurance. Go talk to some financial professionals. But possibly the most important thing right now is to like and subscribe. Just kidding. But really though, do some research and figure out your goals. Figure out your goals for the next next few years and how it affects your families or yourself, and stay the course. Anyways, I'm Mike. I'm a local real estate agent, and I know that was a lot to cover, so if you want to take a deeper dive on any of the topics I covered, feel free to reach out to me. Thank you, and have a great rest of your day.